Hello, hello, hello. And since it's a Sunday that I'm publishing this episode, I'm going to say it's one for the Father, one for the Son, and one for the Holy Ghost. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Your Horizon podcast. I guess that last hello was for you. I am your host, Jon John, and today's episode is a very special episode. On today's episode, I am joined by the author, Dr. Faust Ruggiero. Now, if you know me, you know that I love books, okay? I do joke that I wish that I love reading as much as I love books because honestly, it is hard to find the time to read the books, even the ones that I've recently purchased. But I found the time to get into this book by Dr. Faust Ruggiero. Now, Dr. Faust Ruggiero is a counselor with more than 4 decades of experience and the author of the Fix Your Internal Language Handbook. The conversation we're about to get into dives deep into how the words we speak to ourselves shape who we become. It shapes our peace, our purpose, and even our faith. Dr. Ruggiero was kind enough to even send me a signed copy of the book. And I can tell you, this book is not just a read, okay? It is a guide. So sit back, take a breath, and open your heart as we explore how to quiet the noise and rewrite the language that lives inside of us. So you ready? Let's go beyond our horizons with Dr. Faust Ruggiero. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Your Horizon podcast. And today I am honored and excited and happy and all those things to have with me today Faust Ruggiero, who happens to be the author of the Fix Your Internal Language Handbook. Turn off your brain, stop the angry internal dialogue, and create a powerful way to think and live. So we are going to get into this. But first off, Dr. Faust, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. It's a pleasure to be spending time with you this morning.
Uh, the pleasure is all mine. First off, thank you so much for even being interested and wanting to be on this podcast. Um, I have been reading your book and have taken away some things that has it even helped me in the process. Okay, so like I haven't gotten through it completely, but the parts that I have read already is something that I know is not only going to be beneficial to myself, but to also to anyone who is going to listen to this podcast. Okay. But before we get into it, let you introduce yourself in your own words to let the audience know who you are.
John, I've been around for a long time. I've been counseling people for about 4 decades, and I'm still doing it. It's something that I love to do. Kind of, I think I was born to do. And about 6 years ago, I started writing. Got to the point in the practice where we slowed down just a little bit and said, well, now it's time to branch out a bit and do some things I like. So I started writing the books. This is the book you were holding up is the 6th book in the series.
Mhm.
It's called the Fix Yourself Empowerment series,
Yes.
and doing quite well. People are responding well to it. I like my books to be actionable, so give short chapters, lots of information, and then action steps, because we get lots of information in a lot of places. What I found was what I thought was missing was that last link, that last little thing that says, okay, here's the information. Now do this. And that's what people are responding to. That's people are looking for, I think.
Yes, I totally agree. As it's good to have that information, but how do I apply it? Well, like we all know about, I guess, some negative internal talks that we have, but how do I stop it? And you give us some takeaways in the book that we're able to kind of sit with to journal And then you give us these affirmations too that we can use. So whenever those thoughts begin to come up again, we're able to speak to ourselves and I just and empower ourselves. And I love that about the book. So you said that like this is something that you always wanted to do or to be in. So would you say like this is your calling? You feel like this is your teachings or your calling?
Yeah, a lot of people will tell you they kind of had to search for what they want to do or why they're here or however you want to explain. And I kind of knew that all my life. It was, I was the person that found people fascinating from the beginning. I was the
Hmm.
kid in school people could talk to. I listen. I enjoy listening to people. So it was never any concern about where I was going to go. This is it. This is what I've done. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Still love working with the people that come into my office. I try to do most of my work in the office if I can. I'll do it online with people, in different parts of the country. But for the most part, I like to keep it, personal. So yeah, I'm still doing it.
Nice, nice. Well, I love that. And that's what we talk about here on Beyond Your Horizon. We talk about callings and purpose. And I do feel like everyone has a calling and a purpose. But sometimes we just don't know how to manifest that into reality, or even manifest it in a way that it can actually be a way of life for us. And so that's why I'm happy that you're here, a person who has a calling and is making a livelihood, impacting lives, changing lives. And wow, just you're an example of that. And you did reference in your own introduction there that this book is six in the Fix Yourself Empowerment series. This is book number six. So I was like, I gotta go back and get the rest now. So yeah. So tell us a little bit about how this series came to be.
The first book, which is the Fix Yourself Handbook, uh, was something that I wanted to write something that could simulate a counseling environment. So there are actually in that book there are 36 chapters and 36 different issues. Anger,
Hmm.
anxiety, depression, what have you, and wrote it the same way. We all six books are written exactly with the same format.
Okay.
So it's not like someone picks up the second or third or fourth book and says, okay, what's this going to be like? They know, okay, the first book, I got all this information, short chapters, action steps. Okay, now let's get specific as we moved on. So from that, the flagship book, we call it the first book, I went into anxiety, followed it with depression, followed it with anger, addiction, and now we're um, with internal language. So I'm just trying to help people realize that everything we need's inside us already. We just have to learn how to go get it. That's really what this whole thing is all about. If I had to boil it down to one statement, everything we need is already there. We got to stop following the crowd and looking outside ourselves. We just need to be able to learn how to access what's in there. Then we will find our calling.
Mm. What is it that clouds that prevents us from being able to find the answer within ourselves or this knowledge? Because I agree that a lot of times like aha moments are moments that like when you read it, you're like you already knew it. You feel like
Mhm.
you already knew it,
Yeah.
nothing new. So what is that thing that prevents us from knowing what we know?
We look outside ourselves. We try to stay with the trends, please other people. We follow what's going on in the world. Look at the way our nation, particularly, is going.
Hmm.
Everyone following everyone, and I'm not even sure with all this stuff that's going on and protests and what. I'm not even sure if the people know what they're protesting anymore. We follow the crowd. And at the end of the day, social media, whatever, we gauge it by were we in tune with something. And I always tell people, I said, okay, you're following all that out there. Who are you following? Did you define that? Did you define exactly what your goals are? And in the long run, what it's going to do for you? And there's nothing wrong with being knowledgeable about what's going on, and even getting involved. But before you do that, know yourself, know who you are, and where is your place going to be in all of that. But you got to know you. Stop dealing with the anxieties and the depressions and the substance abuse and all those things. Get down to the point where you yourself feel like you're a powerful person.
Nice, nice, love it. In your introduction, so the audience knows more about this series, it says all the books in the Fix Yourself Empowerment series are written as journeys. I do this because I want you to understand that life is a journey, and by slowing down and understanding the process associated with it, you can learn how to live a happy and productive life. That was
You
not. I
know,
like that. Mhm,
we go so fast in our world, and it's gone faster now than ever. Uh, how do you look inside yourself? How do you go internal? Well, you got to slow down first. That's
mm,
the thing that people have to look at. We just go too fast. Slow down a bit and give yourself some time to reflect. And I always tell people, when you get up in the beginning of the day, do you say, this is what I want to accomplish. This is how I want to be, how I want to feel today. And at the end of the day, do you look at that and be reflective and say, okay, those were the things I wanted. Did I do that? If yes, then I want to continue to to uh, to capitalize on that. If no, I really need to know why that's happening. And it's not out there. You know, I post inspirational quotes every day, and the one that I
mhm.
today, in fact, said, "It's not what happens out there; it's how we respond to it. We have control over that, and we have to start looking at that." But the control means accountability. It means being
Mhm.
accountable to oneself. And no excuses, no lies, no defenses. If you can do that and get past those things, you find yourself. You're in there.
Mm. That's good. Spirit has been dealing with me about that. I know there's a well-known scripture: "Be anxious for nothing."
Yeah.
And then also practicing trust over fear, because I realized in my life that I was being driven by fear. So like, because fear can be a driving factor, feeling like, oh, I need to write this podcast, I need to do this for my job and work on this project. But I was working out of fear of, like, failure, or or my manager being upset, or I'm not reaching my goal or target. And I was allowing that to drive me, and that creates anxiety, that creates stress, burnout, even it creates more procrastination, really, because you just feel like, so I don't know what that feeling is like. It's like almost like you want to avoid it because it's giving you such negative emotions. And so I get when you say, like, slow down. You can. We're in this mentality a lot of times of, like, wanting to hustle and go at it. But I like what you said, like taking that moment to just slow down a little bit, to breathe. You talk about that in your book, because you give practices that we can follow each day, to practice to breathe and to just be in that moment, and move from that space instead of moving out of anxiety and fear. I love
And
that.
that's very important.
Mhm,
When I talk to people about these things, I say, "Are you just going with the flow? Are you on autopilot?" Is the word I always use. And then when you do that, you go faster on autopilot. You're not thinking about anything. One of the keys to getting control of yourself is to get conscious of the moment you're in, to get
mhm,
conscious of your goals, to be accountable to all those things, and then to decide what you're going to do to help calm yourself down. Some people it's meditation, some people it's prayer, some people it's exercise, whatever it may be. You need to put some of that in your life. You talked about fear, and I've replaced fear. I was what you were talking about a long, long time ago. I replaced my fear with my faith,
mm,
and for me, that's been paramount. And when you don't have faith in something a little bit bigger than yourself, and when you're able to define that, that's a whole different way to live. People will talk about something bigger out there or the man upstairs and all these things they use. I say anything you're going to do, whether it's your faith, your spirituality, whether it's uh, what's going on publicly, your relationships, all that you define it. Once you define it, it presents you with all the information you need to change.
Mhm. Nice, nice. And to add on to, I know you said about you give these action steps. I do want to read this part of your introduction in this book where it says, "I always provide action steps in everything I teach because information without a workable course of action can rarely be applied. These action steps are the fuel that makes the program run. I have also provided you with a declaration at the end of each chapter. These affirmations will help you maintain your enthusiasm as you continue addressing the issues in the chapter." I like that because I think many of us, we read these self help books. We have so many books about, the right way of being, or, whatever your issue is, whatever you're struggling with. There's so many books on various topics. But I love here that you're letting it be known here that this is not that kind of book. Not only are we going to go through and learn why we do what we do, but we're also going to put in action steps so we can change the way we do going forward. Beautiful, beautiful.
John, we've always been taught that knowledge or information is power. Uh, Not so.
Hmm.
Acquiring that is the first step. Being able to apply it in a healthy fashion, that's where power comes from. And that's when I started writing, I said, well, let me do a literature review first. I want to see what other people are doing. And they were doing great work until they got to the point of application. And they weren't boiling it all down and saying, okay, you need to do these things, or they were getting general. We hear the term mindfulness. Well, be mindful. And
Hmm.
when I talk to people, I say, what does that mean? Oh, think about what you're doing. Or they give me all these things, and we have mindfulness coaches, and I say, well, what does that mean? How exactly should they do it? And that's what was missing. I didn't find that. And in counseling, if I'm counseling you and you come to me and I give you all this great information about whatever is going on in your life, and then I don't advise you as to how to apply it, I think you'd walk out and say, "That's great. I don't know what to do though. I have more information. I have
Hmm.
to figure out how to apply it." So we want to get a little bit more personal and say, "Okay, this is the information. This is your life. Do these things. Try those." And the other part of the program, in any program, is to understand that our life doesn't end today. So why would the work end today? If our life is going to keep on going, then we're applying all this information and all these steps every day. Uh, and if you do that and stay consistent, life gets good.
Yes, yes. And we all want a good life. That is the goal. Now you present these several processes. I mean, and your book gives us the different categories and descriptions. Um, like some of the processes that stuck out to me was one like surrendering to the process, I over E, intellect over emotion. How did you come up with all of these processes? Because they're like what, about 20 or
There
well,
are
19?
52. There are
Okay,
52.
52. Hmm. Wow.
52 individual process. You know what they are?
Yeah.
They're just the things we use in counseling. All the years that
Okay.
I was counseling, I would say, when I boil it down, what am I telling people to do? And then now you start to get those initial ones, where they're too emotional, they're going
Hmm.
too fast, they're using defenses, um, they don't have goals. All you have all those things. So all I did then is boil them down to concepts where I could teach them. So I over E is such an important one. That's
Yeah.
intellect over emotion. That
Uh-huh.
doesn't mean you can't be emotional. It just means kind of put your emotion on the back burner for a moment. Look at the facts, because fact finding is another process. Look at the facts, put it in a rational way of looking at it. Get the facts, then put your emotions in, and you don't have this out of control reaction to something. You have, all right, this happened. Okay, let me take a step back. Let me look at the facts. What do I want to do with this? Now, how do I feel about it? it's a whole different story because now you're going forward. Your feelings are going forward with facts and the beginnings of a plan.
Mm. Yes, yes, that's a good one because I know I can be reactionary at time. I have been. I'm still working on it. You talk about this in the book about triggers, emotional triggers, and things, and then there are times where I've always felt as if I had to be on the defensive, had to defend myself, so that anything that was maybe what I perceived to be a negative feedback or response to immediately react in a defensive way. um, so yeah, so a lot of your internal language examples that you give throughout the book of how we talk to ourselves and within ourselves, you introduce something called like the internal persona,
Mhm.
which I was like, oh, so like that's like who we are, even when we are alone and in our head, we don't think about that person as much as we think about this outward person that everybody sees. Can you touch on that internal persona?
Sure. Internal language, first of all, we need to start with one simple fact. We
Hmm.
all talk to ourselves. People will say, "Oh my God, I don't talk to myself."
I
That
know
don't
I do.
admit that. Of course we do. We think with language. So if we're thinking with language, it's an internal dialogue. We talk to ourselves. So that's the first thing that we have to look at when we are talking about internal language, and then how we use it, and we create that internal persona. Language and the way we talk to ourselves creates how we think and feel about ourselves. If we talk in angry statements, statements of victimization, we're making excuses, or lying to ourselves, well, that becomes who we are, of course. And then who we are facilitates continued negative language. So we have this reciprocal process going on all the time. When we flip the script and we say, okay, I'm going to think in positive terms, I'm going to be a little easier on myself. I'm going to go to the facts, and I'm going to learn how to apply those, and give myself a break, pat myself on the back sometimes when things are going wrong, rather than saying, "Well, Murphy's law, that's me." Say, "Well, that happened today. I can look at this. I can fix this. I can deal with it, and I want to move on." It's like anything else. If it's positive in your head, you feel good. If you feel good, that persona, that way you think about yourself and your environment and the people in it, changes. If you decide to stay negative, then it works that way, and that's what you'll introduce to your external environment. So I just provide people with ways to change that dialogue. That's all.
Yes, you do. You do a good job of it. What was it? Chapter two, I think, is when we get. Let me see, because I sent some note here, page 19. Yes, because you speak up here about the internal persona. We also have the power to create our own internal persona. This is the person we want to be, or at the very least, this version of ourselves helps us move away from the person we don't want to be. So it starts with the internal persona. Even we are trying to become that. Yeah, go ahead.
And we have control over creating that internal persona.
Mm,
We have control. We can learn to have control over how we think, over the language we use. For example, maybe you're at work, and the boss or the supervisor is a difficult kind of person. You can say, "I hate this person. I hate going to work. When I get there, I know what's going to happen. He or she's really going to make me feel horrible." Or you can say, "It's work. I'm going to be there 8 hours, whatever it's going to be. I'm going to make the best of it. I
mhm,
know this is not a personal attack on me. It's the way the person is. I'm going to say those things to myself. I can relax with this. I'm going to about just go do my work." And that's a different way to think about it. You're empowering yourself. You're saying, "I'm not going to let this get to me. I'm going to put as much positive energy, if you will, into this situation." There are two ways to deal with it. That doesn't mean it's easy all the time. Gee,
mhm.
if I do this, my life is easy. No, it's just a different application of energy. I choose which energy I want to use. That I have control over. It's the negative person and the positive person. Pick, pick which one you want to listen to. That's really what this is all about.
Wow, I have learned that perception, perspective, like it's everything. You can have two people going through the same thing, the same like you have two people dealing with cancer, and you have one person who they're seeing it as like a challenge, as a something that they have to experience and rise above and willing to do whatever it takes and optimistic about it because that's their internal persona. I guess they've done the work to create that persona, and that same thing can happen to someone else, and they instantly turn to fear and doubt and worry, um, and it's all because of where they're coming from within that internal persona, the work that they have done leading up to it. I guess. Go ahead.
Now, if you look at an action step, so to speak, for that,
Hmm.
okay, so something comes up, it happens, whatever it is. I can say, "Oh God, here I go, and this is going to be difficult. I'll work with it," or I can say, "I got this." I remember seeing an old friend of my mother's actually, and she was in her close to 90, and I saw her in a store, and I said, "Geez, how are you?" And she said, "Well, I'm 90, and I've got all the things that go along with 90, but the tsunami didn't take my house. Nobody got killed." And she went on to this list. She says, "I'm fine. I got this
Hmm.
today. Tomorrow, maybe the Lord will take me and won't be dealing with it. But anything comes into my life," she said, "I just go with it." And I say, "I got it. Now I have to figure out how, but I know because tomorrow it's going to be over," is what she said. The
Yeah.
next thing is going to come along. And, it's sort of like, if you have a desk or somewhere area in your house and it's just full of papers and everything else, if you clean it off every day, the next day you start fresh. And if you don't, you drag yesterday's stuff into today, and sooner or later the pile's so big and you want to run away. And I
Hmm.
just say, as things are coming, be able to say, "I've got this. I'm not weak. I'm not some a victim that can't go deal with anything. I got this. I'm going to figure out how, and I may need help to do that. You need to ask for help." But that first second or two or three where it happens and then your mind does something, that's what you're going to follow. So if it's, now you're going to follow that. If it's, "I got this, I'm going to work this out," now you'll follow that. Pick
Hmm.
which one you want to follow in those first 3 seconds.
Wow. I hear that. Such as a man thinketh, so is he. Having that
Absolutely.
that right thought. All right. Let's talk a little about the types of internal language. We're talking about the internal persona. And
Right.
one in particular that I highlighted was critiquing. Because I'm what they call like I'm a Virgo. And so very, very analytical, very critical of myself and of others. I try to keep it in my head but I do. And and you wrote here under critiquing on page 21 in this chapter, it says, when our critiquing of others has a more sinister goal, however, we may look for ways to feel better about ourselves by finding fault with the quality of the work of others, their achievements, or characteristics. The problem with this is that we don't focus on ways to improve ourselves. Someone whose internal persona operates like this is more often negative since they focus on information that is not designed to improve their lives.
Right. We
Yeah.
cannot change another person or that other situation. Oftentimes, we're looking to be critical because I always call it we're evening the playing field. We try to
Yes.
break them down so we feel okay with ourselves. And then we don't do the work that we need to do on ourselves. I just say focus on me. If that's the way they are,
Hmm.
I have no control over that, but I do have control over how I think. And then, regardless of whether the internal dialogue could be right, that person could be that horrible so and so. It's not going to do me any good to focus on that and somehow attempt to validate my thoughts about that. I would
Hmm.
rather say, "That's the way they are. I don't want to do that. I'd rather do this. I'd rather think in these terms, separate myself from that."
Yeah, yeah, because you talk about that, because what I read is like a negative way of using this critiquing. But then you talk about, like, before you get to that, about how it can be positive. You say that we critique others positively. When we critique others positively, our goal is to apply something they are doing successfully to our own internal repertoire. This can help create a positive internal persona that not only seeks to include successful strategies of others in our own lives, but also looks for the positive in our external environment. And so I like that you give this way of saying that, like, if we this just how you just said that, yeah, we might see it. We might see someone behaving in a way that either we like or don't like, but how are we going to use that to create this positive persona? Because we don't want to judge anyone or always looking at the bad in someone, because it will make us a negative person. I know I've been called that before. A lot of my people, I've heard someone respond to me before, is like, "You're a negative," because I was only highlighting maybe some negativity that I saw in someone else, and that can make you a negative person just by doing so. You know.
I had a conversation with someone I was counseling, and this person was he's over involved himself in the political climate of the nation, and
Mm,
he was going. I won't say which side he was going at that other side, saying they're horrible and this, and he was really going. And I said, let me just stop you for a moment. Let's say you're right. I don't know. Maybe you are. Maybe you aren't. How do you feel right now? Feel angry? Yeah, I do. Because they're this, they're that. I said, okay.
mm,
Do you have a solution? No. Can you do anything positive about it? He said, no. I said, let me rephrase that. What if you went out today and you saw someone and maybe they didn't look too happy? And you said, hello, how are you today? Open the door for them.
mm,
It's an older person, carry their groceries or whatever. You did something positive. What if everyone did that today? Do you see what I'm talking
wow.
about? I said,
Hmm.
so what you're saying may be right. I'm not even going to get into the political part of it. Maybe we're right. Maybe you're not. But what I do know is that you're unhappy, angry, talking to yourself in really negative terms, feeling horrible, and it's going to affect the way you think about yourself. It's going to affect your health also, because all
Yes.
that negativity produces negative hormones and chemicals in your body that affect you in those ways. Happy people tend to live happier and longer. And negative people bring on so much stress into their lives, and that
Hmm.
stress really does damage to us all. So wouldn't your goal to be happy first, then extend that happiness outward? I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. You talk about the evening of the playing field. Keep saying evening or evening, but yeah, you talk about that here, and I highlight it here: for those who choose to even the playing field by internal representations designed to rise above the other person and are born out of anger or resentment. The internal persona would be marked by a feeling of inequality when we try to do that. Yeah, and it's just what you were saying there with when we are trying to even the playing field with someone else. That's yeah.
John,
Oh, it's
there's a type of anger I did in an anger book called righteous anger, where we believe
okay.
that we are right, we're above that other stuff, and that our anger is well placed because we need that to somehow change the other person or right the situation in the country or whatever it is. Bottom line, it doesn't matter what type of anger, what type of negativity you're thinking about, it's negative.
Mm,
It's destructive. It doesn't add anything positive to what we're doing. And I go back. We all have those influential people in our lives. One of the influential people for me was Dr. King, who always said, "Good, make the changes," and he was out there at the forefront. But he
mm-hmm,
said, "Do it all with love in your heart and move
mm-hmm,
forward with love." Now, that's different than going out and burning buildings down and looting
mm-hmm,
and doing things like that because you
mm-hmm,
think you're going to make an impact. You make the long long-lasting, consistent changes in your life by being positive and turning all that into a very loving way to act. And don't worry about what the other person's doing. That don't make that other person an excuse for you to think in a different way. You be your own gatekeeper. You decide how you're going to think.
I agree. I agree. I also believe in the power of intention. Like what is your intention? So I try to keep that in mind too in my actions. Like what is my true intention here? Like what is it that I really am trying to make happen, um or to understand, like what is behind my decision to act in a certain way, to respond in a certain way, even if you are dealing with, because I know you're right, we're in this very heated political climate that there are many different views, many different opinions, in that, and that we have to find a way to be able to share these opinions and share our differences, sometimes agree to disagree, but still be able to move forward in a way that we realize that we are all in this together. We all are in America and Americans and all of that. And so how can we change, or not change, but how can we bring about change in a way that is still positive, that does not incite anger or does not incite violence or anything like that, or lower anyone down.
I always tell people, look at the world changing people, the people that really are
Mm,
positive impact. And you have people like Gandhi,
mhm,
Teresa, Dr. King,
mhm,
um, Nelson Mandela. You have these type, John Paul II. They were all people of love and peace, and they made some of the most significant changes in our world. We could look at them and say, geez, that man's locked up for how many years? And he
oh,
came out
wow.
love and positive. Who does that? You know who does that? The person who knows themselves, loves themselves, and says, I am still going to come out of here and I'm going to turn that out into the world. Those are the people that we follow, not the ones that are angry and hurting other people.
Mhm,
And hurting people doesn't only mean physical and what we're talking about in the political climate. That could just be the negative opinion about someone else, and then not. Sometimes it's not hurting them; it's being unwilling to do the positive, to do the loving thing. That again affects the internal persona. I'm unwilling to help you because why should I? You're not doing anything for me, kind of an
mm,
attitude.
yes, yeah. Another type of internal language that I was kind of surprised to see listed here, even especially in the negative form, was prayer. Because we always think about prayer as being this like positive thing and everything. Um, but you put in here, it says, like other forms of internal language, prayer affects our internal persona. If we lash out at God for something we feel is unfair or for allowing something horrible to occur, it could affect our internal persona by creating a negative flow of spiritual energy. If our prayers are more respectful and thankful and produce a positive spiritual connection, our internal persona will reflect that. Yeah.
And again, if what I'm teaching is going to be consistent, we wouldn't say that it applies to everything but prayer. How many people are angry at God? How many people
Mm-hmm.
only pray when they say, I want something? Or maybe thank God I got that. It's not a simple a way of life. Why do I pray? Because I love God. That's the only reason I pray.
Mm-hmm.
I want
Mm-hmm.
that connection. And if I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about, for me, this is my life, so I'll be personal about that, and it's my
Okay.
opinion. If I decide that I want to be the most powerful person I can be, wouldn't it make sense for me to be positive and connect with my feeling of the most powerful source in the universe?
Mm-hmm.
So I need to be positive when I do that, because if I'm negative, I take a very powerful instrument in my life and I push it to the side. So it doesn't matter how you're applying it. What you think in your head is something you can control, or at least learn to control, and continue to do that. That's all.
Mm, right. I'm gonna go on to chapter 3, which is titled "Self Dialogue: The Good and the Not So Good." Because we've been talking about the different types of internal languages, and I think this hits on why it is so important to get that internal language right. Why it's good to focus on it and improve it, because you say here that language can also instigate the use of energy, since it directs our thoughts to potential action. So I like how you made that connection there, that, like, the reason why we're having these conversations and talking about the power of internal language and whatnot is that it starts with internal language, but then it moves into the way we act, as well. Another thing, I don't know why I'm going back into my church boy days, because I'm getting because I remember, like, wasn't it Jesus that was saying about, like, if you've already thought it, you've done it, pretty much, like he was saying. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And mhm,
I tell people, okay, you did this. Was it just an impulse? You were out of control. Someone hijacked your brain and then you did it?
mhm,
Or was this something you spun for a while? Because there's two parts to that. There's the individual action. If I think this and I'm moving in that direction, I may do it. But the other part is, if I consistently think that, now I'm more apt to routinely find myself behaving like that. So if I'm a positive, loving person, I'm working with the power inside me. I want to really harness who I am and have that persona be positive. Then I'm going to constantly be thinking that way. So when something comes up, it comes into that strong internal persona versus
mhm,
the
mhm.
negative, angry one that says, "What?" And it got fists in the air and ready to go.
Yes. Yes, yes. Um, yeah, that's good, because you're right. It connects to our, how we act and what we do. Like you said, it started from the internal language. It started there first. And in this chapter, you also show us how we can revise some of that negative internal language. And I liked how you use the I am words. That is, we see that a lot in affirmations, the use of the word I am. So, like, instead of saying that I will never be prepared for this, say I am ready to take on another day. Why are those I am statements so powerful?
Well, they tell us A, about ourselves, and B, what we're gonna do. And I always tell people, stop pre-thinking about the end result. Oh, I can't do that because I know this person will react this way. That'll happen.
Hmm.
I am strong enough to make the attempt to do what I need to do here. And
Hmm.
then I'm going to apply myself. It's very
Hmm.
simple, versus I am not strong enough. I don't want to do this. And I know we've become a society that's very quick fix oriented. We don't
Hmm.
like to do the work. We feel entitled to what we should have. And
Mm.
that's not the natural way of the world. The world doesn't care about what we think. You know, we don't get up and the whole world is aligned to exactly what we're looking for. That'd be
No.
great, but it's not the way it is. So we have to align it every day. And if I can give anyone a piece of wisdom, understand you are the person who will or will not align your world according to the happiness you seek. If you choose not to put that effort in, then you are left to whatever the world has to offer.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. You've done some good work here. You made me want to go out and get the other books for the whole series. Because I like to spotlight people who I call them light workers. The people who are, because we got a lot of content out there. There's a lot out there, but there are only few people out there who are doing the work of actually helping people to become better versions of themselves. I believe in a higher version of myself, and even when I say my daily prayers, I ask for forgiveness for any actions I have done that were beneath the highest version of myself. Yeah.
And I
I
do the same, I
mhm,
hold myself accountable. People say,
mhm.
"Well, gee, how did you get all this wisdom?" And I just kind of chuckle when I hear that. Someone says to me, "But you have all this," and when they come into counseling, and I said, "Time out." I don't. I'm in the soup with you. I've decided to acquire a few more paddles to get through it. The bottom line is, how do you get to the point that you can do this? You make a commitment to say, I am going to be better every day. You decide, hey, this is how I want people to see me. It's how I want to feel. It's not fake. I want people to see that loving person that's willing to go out for them. I'm willing to work for it. I make a commitment to do it every day. And,
Mhm.
and I live it and I hold myself accountable, just like you said. At the end of the day, okay, Lord, how did I do on this?
Yeah.
Was I okay? I mean, let me look at this. These are the
Mhm,
things that we want me to be. Did I hold true to those things? And I do that last thing you do. One of the last things I do before, and again, I'm a person of faith, before I tell my Lord
mhm,
I love him,
mhm,
is to say, please forgive me for any sins and indiscretions and things that I
mhm.
did that, not so much mistakes, but things, I knew better. I should have done a little bit
Mhm,
better on that one.
mhm,
And
mhm.
doing that, what it does is it increases a key component in all our lives that we all need, and that's humility. If we
Yes.
can't be humble, we stop learning. The moment we decide we're not, we're prideful. I'm not going to do this. I'm not letting that person get to me, or whatever it is. We stop learning, and learning is a function of repetition over time. But wisdom is a function of that learning with humility. Because the moment we become arrogant and get to the point that we think we know,
Mm,
we made a decision to stop learning. I know I don't have to learn anymore. I always say that's the moment we become dumb.
yes.
That's when everyone pulls ahead of us. Uh, so you always be able to say, you know what, I'm sorry, no problem. Let's get that out of the way, and let me hear what you have to say. Maybe I'm one political faction, you're another, or one religious faction, you're another. I I say, well, gee, you tell me what you want to think. I'm not going to reload and react. I just want to hear what you have to say. Maybe it's something I didn't think about.
Mhm,
Maybe one little part of it. I don't have to accept all of it. Oh, I like that. Or maybe I just like your delivery. Wow, you were so loving and
mhm,
peaceful.
mhm.
The way you listened and came back to me. I could include that in my repertoire. I think that would work. So humility is such, a huge component along with gratitude. I'm grateful
Yes.
for everything and not what I get. I'm grateful inside, and everything comes in, goes there. That's a
Mhm.
whole different way to live life. These are the tools that I use every day, and I funnel those into the way I think and talk.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I start my day off with gratitude because just the act of sleeping, going to bed and all of your defenses are down, and there is no guarantee you're going to wake up in the morning, ever. So every morning I start off with that gratefulness of just having life, health, and strength for watching over me as I slept last night. I could have we could have woken up to a fire. We could have woken up to,
Right?
a break in or anything like that. So it should be easy for any one of us to be grateful and to find the gratitude in that moment. And then another thing that we always put into my prayers is, forgiving others for anything they've done to me, because I realize that I know I've done things and I want to be for forgiven of it. And also anyone that may have done me wrong throughout that day. Someone who may have had a negative internal persona and lashed out at me, and to finding grace for those people as well. So yeah, we have that in common, that prayer is a powerful tool to align yourself with the highest version of yourself and to be more intentional. But I still like how in your book you touched on, even watching your prayers, to be certain that you're not, lashing out at God or anyone else within your prayer, and just being mindful of how you pray as well. Yeah. All
You know,
right.
When
Hmm.
I started doing the first book, another concept that I should bring up is that, when we talk about who we are and how we're made, we are physical, we're
Hmm.
intellectual, we're emotional, and we are spiritual. And I talk about, if you want peace in your life, you work hard to get a balance between that. If you follow Buddhist philosophy, they talk about
Hmm.
nirvana. It's when
Yeah.
everything's at peace. It's that day you wake up, any day, where you say, gee, today was a great day, I was calm and relaxed. My body felt good. I wasn't emotional. My thoughts were clear. I felt connected to myself, maybe the Lord, whatever, whatever. And those are the best days of our lives. So when you're thinking, for all the listeners, when you're thinking about how you want to do this, easy. Take care of your body, so that, because that's what's getting you around. When it comes to your intellect, work with facts. Always work with
Yeah.
facts.
Yeah.
Your emotions, table them enough to get the facts. Don't be a reactive person and give in to that. Well, I'm just an emotional person. No, you're giving into your emotions. Slow those emotions down and be willing to connect with that spiritual side. When you get balance, that leads to what, in my program, the final and most important part of a goal for all of us, which is what I call pure love. That's
Mm.
when gratitude, humility, wisdom, uh, all the things will all come in together. And that love is not hallmark. It's not from the heart. It doesn't require reciprocity. It just exists, and it's unconditional. The only unconditional love we can ever have comes from the soul, comes from that part of us. Our mind cannot love unconditionally. Our emotions can't go unconditional, and our
Hmm.
body, our soul, that spirit is the only place we find in unconditional love. So when someone says, "I love unconditional," I'm assuming that, and I'll ask them that question, and I won't judge them or say anything. But I said, "Is that coming from the soul?" That's where unconditional everything is.
Hmm.
That's where the purest form of love is. And if you balance your life out, that's when you can connect on all four levels.
Nice. Pure love. That's nice. That's nice. I know you said something I often think of myself as like my own holy trinity,
Yeah.
mind, body, spirit. And a lot of times you have to make sure you're checking on each
Yeah.
one of them. Each one of them.
Yes, you are.
Uh well, I thank you so much, Dr. Faust Ruggiero. I said it
Uh-huh.
right? Ruggiero? Yes, yes. Thank you so much for this conversation and for this book. And for anybody who's listening or watching this episode, make sure you check out again the Fix Your Internal Language Handbook. It is a series, so I would definitely encourage you to get the whole series because I'm going through it now, marking up things and applying them, and because I do know that I struggle sometimes with my own internal persona. I'm a person that likes to talk to myself. I get that from my mom. I saw her talking to herself as a child, and we pick at her. And now I find myself doing the same thing. I just walk around and, oh, you even talk about that. Having these conversations with people who are not there. I'm like, oh, I
And
wish,
we all
like,
do it.
right, right. We all do it. Like, oh, wow. Like, are replaying and a past event, and oh, I should have said this, or if they come at me like this, I'm going to respond this way, and just it is a mess. And you talk about like racing, your racing thoughts and stuff like that too, and how to handle those. You give great tools there because we all deal with these thoughts that won't shut up. They just, your brain just keeps throwing it up there, throwing it up there. You're like, oh, I want you to shut up. And you give like tools about like, getting some physical activity, and you introduce meditation and breath work and things that we can do, because sometimes, right, those thoughts won't stop. Like they'll just boom, boom. And I've had to tell myself many times, like, Jonathan, you forgave that person. So let that go. you know, it is okay. And yeah, yeah.
Just quickly to that, when those
Hmm.
thoughts come in, 'cause I want to give people an action step, if you will. The thoughts
Okay.
come in and you know they're there and you don't want them. There's a three-step formula that works so well. First thing is to consciously say to yourself, I'm not thinking about this anymore. I'm not going to do it. Second step, right on the spot, is to say, I'm going to think about this.
Mm,
Third step is to develop that thought. Now, bring that thought down the road. So you get the negative out, you stop the negative, pick a positive thought, develop the positive thought. I do it all the time because you know what? I don't care how good you get at internal dialogue, negative stuff's going to come in. And don't beat yourself up and say, my God, I can't do this. Yes, you can. Every time it comes in, that's when you stop it, redirect it, develop it, and it will work. Again, back to that, what I said, learning to do this. That's what you're doing. You're retraining your brain is a function of repetition over time. So keep on repeating those three steps over time and you will get better. You will get better at the way you think it.
nice. Thank you for that. Thank you. So for if you would just let people know how they can find you.
The easiest way to get to me is on my website. It is my name, faustruggiero.com. When you get there, everything about me is there. There are excerpts from all 6 books. So if people say, "Hey, let me look at what these books look like," I like to give them a little taste of it, because then they choose whether
Hmm.
they want to buy or not. And if you want to contact me, there is a contact link there, and I do get back to people.
Nice, nice, nice. Any upcoming events going on that we should know about? Or
Well, we're developing a documentary that on trauma that's in the works right now, and it's going to uh, play off of the shooting in Las Vegas 4 or 5 years ago, and one of the people who was a hero in that, and his life after that, and all the trauma he went through. That's in the works, and then I'm beginning to develop book number 7, which is going to be the Fix Your Faith Handbook.
fix your faith. Okay. Oh, nice, nice. All right. Well, Dr. Faust Ruggiero, I want you to know that I thank you so much for coming on the Beyond Your Horizon podcast. I've gotten a lot out of this conversation just talking to you. I could talk all day about it. And I hope that the listeners as well have picked up on something. And you all know that where you can follow me or reach out to me if you have any questions. So maybe we can bring him back on. If there is you got some feedback or some questions that you want answers to as you go through this book, let me know what those questions are, and so we can maybe do another talk. So I hope you enjoyed yourself, Boss Ruggiero, here today.
It was a wonderful time spent with you, and to all of you again, if you need me, my website, feel free to contact me.
All right, cool. All right, that's a wrap. Let me stop this. What a powerful conversation. First off, I want to give a huge thanks to Dr. Faust Ruggiero. There you see the book, for joining me and for sharing so much wisdom from the Fix Your Internal Language Handbook. If today's episode resonated with you, please make sure you go out and grab you a copy and check out the full Fix Your and Self-Empowerment series at faustruggiero.com. And as always, I want to thank you for listening or watching, however you are consuming Beyond Your Horizon. Remember, we got to remind ourselves that growth starts from within. And the way we speak to ourselves, it shapes the world around us. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, rate, and subscribe wherever you're tuning in. You can also send your feedback or questions to me. You can email me at Jon John, and that's spelled JONJOHN, at gobyh.com. So that's go, B as in beyond, Y as in your, H as in horizon.com. I would really love to hear how this episode spoke to you. And if you have any questions you'd like me to ask Dr. Faust Ruggiero when he comes back, because I hope he will come back, please submit those questions to me. so I can ask him. So until next time, keep believing, keep growing, and keep going beyond your horizon. Love you.